My dear friends, the Buddha often reminded us that suffering rarely appears suddenly. It begins quietly. A small habit, a small ignorance, a small choice repeated every day. Then, slowly, without warning, the body begins to weaken. The eyes begin to blur. The mind begins to worry. And we ask ourselves a painful question. How did this happen? Many people today are unknowingly harming one of the most precious gifts they have: their vision. Something as ordinary as a daily powder used in food, drinks, or processed products may slowly damage the eyes when used excessively or without awareness. But the deeper lesson is not only about a powder, it is about mindfulness. The Buddha taught that ignorance about what we consume, what we repeat, and what we allow into our bodies eventually creates suffering. Today, we will reflect on 7 important lessons about awareness, health, and protecting the clarity of both the eyes and the mind. Because when wisdom guides our choices, suffering can be prevented long before it begins. One, ignorance about daily habits creates long-term suffering. The Buddha taught that ignorance is the first link in the chain of suffering. In Buddhist teachings, this ignorance is called avijja. It does not mean that a person lacks intelligence or education. It means something much deeper. It means living without awareness of the consequences of our actions. It means moving through life on automatic patterns without stopping to observe what those patterns are doing to our body and mind. Many people assume that suffering appears suddenly. They imagine that illness or weakness arrives out of nowhere. But the Buddha explained that suffering usually grows slowly. It develops through repeated actions that we do not question. A person wakes up in the morning and repeats the same routine. They eat the same foods. They drink the same beverages. They add the same powders or supplements. They follow the same habits they have followed for years. And because these habits feel normal, the mind stops investigating them. This is the quiet power of ignorance. When something becomes familiar, the brain labels it as safe. Once that label is created, most people never look deeper. They never ask simple but important questions. What exactly am I putting into my body? Is this substance natural or heavily processed? How does this affect my organs, my blood, and my senses over time? Is this helping my body function properly, or is it slowly disturbing its balance? Without awareness, these questions never arise. The Buddha often encouraged people to develop mindfulness not only in meditation but also in daily life. Mindfulness means observing what we do, what we consume, and what effects those choices create in the body. The body is not separate from our choices. Everything that enters the body becomes part of its system. Every substance we consume must be processed by the organs. It travels through the blood. It interacts with the nerves. It affects different parts of the body in different ways. And the eyes are among the most sensitive organs in the entire body. The eyes require delicate balance to function well. They depend on stable blood circulation. They depend on proper nutrients. They depend on the absence of substances that create inflammation or metabolic disruption. When this balance is disturbed repeatedly, the eyes begin to weaken. But the weakening usually begins slowly. At first, a person may notice mild discomfort. Perhaps their eyes feel tired more often. Perhaps they experience occasional dryness. Perhaps reading small text becomes slightly more difficult. These early signals are easy to dismiss. Many people assume that such changes are simply part of getting older or spending too much time on screens. But sometimes the deeper cause lies in what the body is receiving every day. Many powders used in modern diets are highly processed. Some contain refined sugars, artificial flavor enhancers, chemical stabilizers, or additives designed to extend shelf life. These substances may not cause immediate harm after one use, but when they are consumed daily for years, they can gradually affect metabolic balance. For example, excessive sugar derivatives can disrupt blood glucose levels. This imbalance can eventually affect tiny blood vessels throughout the body. The eyes rely heavily on these small blood vessels to deliver oxygen and nutrients. When circulation becomes unstable, the delicate structures of the eye can begin to suffer. Inflammation is another factor. Certain processed ingredients may contribute to chronic low-level inflammation in the body. Over long periods of time, this inflammation can affect tissues and nerves, including those connected to vision. But the most dangerous part of this process is how quietly it unfolds. The body does not immediately announce that something is wrong. It sends subtle signals. Blurred vision that appears occasionally. Eye strain that increases gradually. Dryness or irritation that becomes more frequent. Difficulty focusing when reading. Sensitivity to bright light. These symptoms may appear small at first. Because they are mild, people continue their habits without thinking much about them. This is how long-term suffering grows. The Buddha explained that every action plants a seed. When an action is repeated many times, that seed becomes stronger. Imagine planting a single seed in the ground. On its own, it may not seem significant, but when that seed is watered every day, it eventually grows into a large tree. Habits work in the same way. A single unhealthy choice may not cause immediate damage, but when the same choice is repeated hundreds or thousands of times, it begins shaping the condition of the body. Years pass, and the consequences become visible. Vision becomes weaker. Eye conditions develop. Daily activities become more difficult, and people wonder how it happened. But from the perspective of wisdom, the result was quietly developing all along. This is why the Buddha emphasized awareness. Awareness interrupts ignorance. When a person becomes mindful, they begin to observe their habits clearly. They start asking questions about the substances they consume and the routines they follow. They become curious rather than careless. Instead of assuming something is safe because it is common, they investigate whether it truly supports health. This kind of awareness is not fear. It is responsibility. The purpose of awareness is not to create anxiety about every small detail of life. The purpose is to encourage thoughtful choices that protect long-term well-being. Health is rarely destroyed in one dramatic moment. It is usually weakened through many small decisions repeated over time. And the same is true for wisdom. Wisdom grows through small moments of awareness repeated again and again. When we begin examining our habits, we regain control over the direction of our health. The Buddha taught that suffering is not inevitable. Much of it can be prevented when ignorance is replaced with understanding. By paying attention to what we consume and how it affects our body, we take the first step toward protecting not only our eyes, but our entire well-being. This is why awareness of daily habits is so important, because the habits we ignore today may become the suffering we face tomorrow. 2. What we consume becomes part of our body. The Buddha often reminded his followers that life is shaped by causes and conditions. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything we experience arises from something that came before it. This principle is known as cause and effect. When we apply this understanding to health, the lesson becomes very clear. What we consume today becomes the condition of our body tomorrow. Every substance that enters the body must be processed by it. Food, drinks, powders, supplements, and additives all travel through the same biological pathways. They enter the bloodstream, interact with organs, influence hormones, and affect how the body functions. The body does not ignore what we put into it. It responds to everything. Many people think of consumption only in terms of taste or convenience. If something tastes pleasant or is easy to prepare, they assume it must be acceptable for daily use. But the body evaluates substances very differently than the mind does. The mind judges based on flavor, habit, and social influence. The body judges based on chemistry. The body must break down what we consume. It must filter it through the liver. It must circulate it through the blood. It must manage how these substances affect organs and tissues. When we consume natural and balanced foods, the body receives what it needs to maintain stability. Nutrients support the organs, circulation remains balanced, and systems function smoothly. But when the body repeatedly receives substances that are heavily processed or chemically altered, the balance becomes more difficult to maintain. Many modern powders used in daily diets are designed for convenience and taste rather than long-term health. Some contain refined sugars, synthetic flavor enhancers, preservatives, artificial colors, or stabilizing agents that extend shelf life. While these substances may appear harmless in small amounts, repeated daily consumption can slowly influence how the body operates. The eyes are especially sensitive to these internal changes. The eyes are not separate from the rest of the body. They rely on healthy blood circulation, proper oxygen delivery, and balanced nutrients in order to function clearly. When the bloodstream carries excessive sugars or inflammatory compounds, small blood vessels throughout the body can be affected. The eyes depend heavily on these tiny vessels to nourish the retina and other delicate structures. If these vessels become damaged or weakened over time, vision can begin to suffer. In addition, the nerves connected to the eyes rely on stable metabolic conditions. Disruptions in the body's chemistry can gradually influence how these nerves function, which may affect focus, clarity, and sensitivity to light. This process rarely happens quickly. Most health problems linked to diet develop slowly over many years. A person may use a particular powder every morning in coffee or tea. Another person may rely on instant drink mixes or powdered supplements several times a day. Because the effects are not immediate, the habit continues without concern. But the body records every repetition. Day after day, the substances accumulate in the body's systems. The liver works harder to process chemicals. Blood sugar levels fluctuate more frequently. Inflammation may slowly increase in certain tissues. Circulation may become less efficient, and eventually, the eyes begin to reflect these internal changes. Vision may become slightly blurred. Focusing on small details may become more difficult. Eyes may feel tired more quickly than before. These changes often appear gradually, which makes them easy to ignore. People may attribute them to aging, stress, or long hours of screen use. But sometimes the deeper cause lies in the substances entering the body every day. The Buddha taught that mindfulness should extend beyond meditation and into daily living. Mindfulness means being aware of what we are doing and why we are doing it. When applied to consumption, mindfulness asks simple but powerful questions. What exactly am I consuming? Is this nourishing my body or simply satisfying a habit? Is this substance natural and balanced, or is it heavily processed and artificial? Is my body benefiting from this, or slowly struggling to manage it? These questions help break the cycle of unconscious habits. Without mindfulness, consumption becomes automatic. People follow routines simply because they have always followed them. But wisdom requires examination. The Buddha encouraged people to observe cause and effect in their own lives. When we begin paying attention, we often notice patterns that were invisible before. We may realize that certain substances make us feel tired, restless, or uncomfortable. We may notice that our body functions better when we reduce processed ingredients and return to simpler foods. We may see how small daily choices gradually shape the condition of our health. Understanding that what we consume becomes part of our body is an important step toward responsible living. The body is not a machine that can endlessly process anything without consequence. It is a living system that responds to every influence we introduce. Each choice we make either supports balance or disturbs it. And because the eyes depend on the health of the entire body, they often reveal these disturbances earlier than we expect. Clear vision is not only a matter of the eyes themselves, it is a reflection of the body's internal harmony. When we treat our body with awareness and care, we protect that harmony. And when harmony is protected, the senses, including the eyes, are more likely to remain strong and clear for many years. This is why mindful consumption is not a small practice. It is a form of wisdom in action. 3. The body speaks quietly before it breaks. The Buddha often taught that wisdom begins with careful observation. A wise person does not wait for a crisis before paying attention. They notice small changes. They observe subtle signals. They listen closely to what the body and mind are communicating. The human body is constantly speaking to us, but it rarely shouts at first. It whispers. When something in the body begins to fall out of balance, the first signs are usually gentle and easy to overlook. A small discomfort here, a slight change there. Something that feels unusual, but not serious enough to cause alarm. Because the signs are quiet, many people ignore them. They tell themselves that it is nothing important. They assume it will pass on its own. They become busy with daily life and push the signals aside. But the Buddha often reminded his followers that suffering does not appear suddenly without causes. It grows gradually through conditions that develop over time. Health problems follow the same pattern. Long before serious illness appears, the body usually sends many warnings. The problem is not that the body fails to communicate. The problem is that the mind fails to listen. When it comes to the eyes, the body often provides several early signals that something is not quite right. A person may begin to notice that their eyes feel tired more often than before. Reading small text may require more effort. Looking at screens or bright light may cause discomfort sooner than expected. Some people experience dryness or irritation that was not present in the past. Others notice that their vision becomes slightly blurry at certain times of the day. At first, these changes appear minor. They may happen only occasionally. Because the symptoms are not severe, people assume they are temporary or unimportant. But small signals are often the body's way of asking for attention. The eyes are extremely sensitive organs. They depend on delicate systems inside the body that must remain balanced in order to function properly. Healthy circulation must deliver oxygen and nutrients to the tiny structures inside the eye. Nerves must transmit signals smoothly between the eyes and the brain. The surface of the eyes must remain properly hydrated and protected. When something interferes with these systems, the eyes often react quickly. Sometimes the cause is environmental. Too much screen exposure, poor lighting, or lack of sleep can place stress on the eyes. But in many cases, the cause is internal. What we consume every day influences the chemistry of the body. Certain substances can affect blood sugar levels, circulation, inflammation, or nerve function. When these internal systems become disturbed, the eyes may be among the first places where the effects appear. For example, unstable blood sugar can gradually affect the tiny blood vessels that nourish the retina. Inflammation inside the body can also influence delicate eye tissues. Even mild dehydration can affect tear production and lead to dryness or irritation. When these processes begin, the symptoms often appear quietly. A little dryness, a little strain, a little difficulty focusing. Because these changes do not immediately stop a person from functioning, they are often dismissed. People continue their habits without making adjustments. This is where suffering slowly grows. The Buddha compared this process to a small spark that eventually becomes a fire. At the beginning, the spark is tiny and easy to extinguish. But if it is ignored and allowed to spread, it becomes much more difficult to control. The same is true with health. When early warning signs appear, the wise response is investigation. Instead of ignoring the signals, a mindful person becomes curious. They ask themselves what might be contributing to these changes. Are they overworking their eyes with excessive screen time? Are they lacking proper rest? Are they consuming substances that may be affecting their body's balance? Are certain habits placing unnecessary strain on their system? By asking these questions early, a person has the opportunity to correct the causes before the problem grows larger. Unfortunately, many people wait until the body begins to shout. They wait until the discomfort becomes strong enough to interfere with daily life. By that time, the imbalance may have been developing for years. Vision becomes noticeably weaker. Eye conditions appear. Medical treatments become necessary. And the person begins to wish they had listened earlier. The Buddha's teachings encourage a different approach. Instead of waiting for suffering to become severe, mindfulness teaches us to notice the quiet signals of the body. These signals are not enemies, they are messages. They are the body's way of saying that something requires attention. When we respond with awareness, we protect ourselves from greater difficulties in the future. Small corrections made early can prevent large problems later. The eyes are one of the clearest examples of this principle. Because they are so delicate, they often reveal internal imbalances before other organs do. If we listen carefully, they can guide us toward healthier choices. But this requires patience and awareness. It requires slowing down enough to observe what the body is experiencing instead of rushing past the signals. The Buddha often said that mindfulness brings clarity. When we practice awareness in daily life, we begin to see connections between our habits and our well-being. We recognize how repeated actions shape the condition of the body. And once we see these connections clearly, we gain the ability to change them. The body speaks quietly at first. But if we learn to listen, those quiet messages can guide us toward wisdom, balance, and long-lasting health. 4. Craving for convenience often creates future pain. The Buddha taught that craving is one of the deepest forces shaping human behavior. In Buddhist teachings, this craving is known as tanha, the endless desire to obtain what feels pleasant and to avoid what feels difficult. It is the quiet voice inside the mind that constantly pushes us toward comfort, speed, and ease. Craving does not always appear in dramatic ways. Often it hides inside ordinary habits that seem harmless on the surface. One of the most common forms of craving in modern life is the craving for convenience. People want things to be fast. They want things to be easy. They want results without effort and solutions without patience. This craving has shaped much of the modern food industry. Instead of preparing natural foods slowly and mindfully, many people now rely on products designed to save time. Instant drinks, flavored powders, meal replacements, and processed mixtures promise quick satisfaction. Just add water, stir once, drink immediately. It feels efficient. It feels modern. It feels convenient. But the Buddha often reminded us that what feels easy in the present can create difficulty in the future. Convenience often hides complexity. When people prepare food from simple ingredients, they can clearly see what they are consuming. They know what has been added and what is not. The process is transparent. But when substances come in powdered form, sealed inside containers or packages, the true contents are often hidden behind long lists of unfamiliar ingredients. Artificial flavors, stabilizers, refined sugars, chemical preservatives, coloring agents, processing compounds designed to maintain texture or extend shelf life. These substances are rarely chosen because they support long-term health. They are usually chosen because they improve taste, reduce production costs, or allow products to remain stable on store shelves for long periods of time. The problem is not that one small amount of these substances will immediately destroy the body. The real problem is repetition. When convenience becomes a daily habit, the body receives these substances again and again, morning after morning, day after day, year after year. The human body is incredibly resilient, but it is not invincible. It can adapt to many challenges, yet constant exposure to unnatural compounds slowly places strain on the body's systems. The liver must work harder to filter chemicals. The digestive system must process ingredients it was never designed to handle in large amounts. The bloodstream carries compounds that may disturb natural balance. Over time, these disturbances affect different organs. The eyes are among the organs most sensitive to these changes. Healthy vision depends on stable internal conditions. The eyes require proper circulation, balanced nutrients, and minimal inflammation in order to function clearly. When the body is exposed repeatedly to substances that disrupt metabolic balance, the eyes can begin to reflect that disturbance. Circulation may become less efficient. Inflammation may increase. Nutrient absorption may become less effective. All of these changes can influence the delicate structures that support vision. But because these changes happen gradually, they rarely appear dramatic at first. A person may simply feel that their eyes tire more quickly. They may notice dryness after reading or using screens. They may feel mild discomfort in bright light. These symptoms often appear so slowly that people assume they are just part of aging or normal life. But the Buddha's teachings encourage us to look deeper than surface explanations. When we examine our habits honestly, we often discover that many of our routines are shaped by craving for ease rather than genuine care for our well-being. Convenience can quietly replace mindfulness. Instead of asking whether something truly supports our health, we ask only whether it saves time. Instead of choosing what nourishes the body, we choose what requires the least effort. But wisdom asks a different question. Wisdom asks whether today's comfort is creating tomorrow's suffering. The Buddha often used simple examples to illustrate this principle. If a person continually adds small drops of poison to a cup of water, the poison may not seem dangerous at first. But over time, the cup becomes harmful. In the same way, small daily habits accumulate consequences. One shortcut repeated many times becomes a powerful influence on the body. This does not mean that every convenience must be rejected completely. The Buddha did not teach extreme restriction or rigid control. He taught balance. The real problem arises when convenience replaces awareness entirely. When people stop questioning what they consume, habits begin to guide their lives without conscious choice. Mindfulness restores that choice. When we slow down and examine our routines, we begin to see which habits truly support our health and which ones simply satisfy temporary comfort. Preparing simple foods, choosing natural ingredients, reducing unnecessary additives, paying attention to how the body responds. These small acts of mindfulness create a powerful difference over time. They may require a little more effort in the present, but they protect the body in the future. The Buddha often emphasized that true freedom comes from understanding cause and effect. When we recognize how our habits shape our health, we gain the power to choose wisely. Craving pushes us toward the fastest path. Wisdom guides us toward the healthiest one. And when wisdom begins guiding our choices, the body benefits in ways that may not be immediately visible but become incredibly valuable over the years. Because every mindful choice is not only caring for the present moment, it is also protecting the life we will live tomorrow. 5. The eyes are one of the most precious gifts of human life. The Buddha often reminded his followers that human life is rare and valuable. To be born as a human being with the ability to think, learn, understand, and grow is considered a great opportunity in Buddhist teachings. But within this precious life, there are also smaller blessings that we often overlook. One of the greatest of these blessings is the ability to see. Most people move through their daily lives without ever pausing to reflect on the miracle of vision. From the moment we wake up in the morning, our eyes allow us to recognize the world instantly. We see the light of the sun, the faces of people we care about, the words on a page, the colors of nature, and the countless details that shape our experience of life. Because vision is always present, we begin to treat it as something ordinary. But the Buddha encouraged people to reflect deeply on the gifts they possess. Gratitude arises when we realize how fragile and temporary many of these abilities truly are. The eyes are incredibly complex organs. Within a very small space inside the eye, millions of cells work together to detect light, color, and movement. Tiny blood vessels deliver oxygen and nutrients to delicate tissues. Nerves carry visual signals from the eyes to the brain, where those signals are transformed into the images we recognize as reality. This entire process happens instantly and continuously. Every second that we are awake, the eyes are working. They allow us to read, learn, travel, work, and communicate with others. They guide our movements and help us avoid danger. They allow us to experience beauty and appreciate the world around us. Without vision, many of these experiences become far more difficult. Simple tasks that most people perform automatically begin to require assistance and patience. Reading becomes challenging. Moving through unfamiliar environments requires greater effort. Daily independence becomes limited. Many people only begin to appreciate their eyesight after it begins to weaken. A person who once read easily may suddenly struggle to focus on small text. Someone who once drove comfortably at night may begin to notice glare and blurred lights. Activities that once felt effortless begin to require concentration and strain. These changes can affect not only physical ability, but also emotional well-being. Vision loss often creates frustration and anxiety. People may feel less confident in their independence. They may rely more heavily on others for tasks they once performed easily. This is why protecting the eyes is not a small matter. It is an act of respect for the body we have been given. In Buddhist teachings, caring for the body is not about vanity or attachment. It is about responsibility. The body is the vehicle through which we experience life and practice wisdom. If we neglect it carelessly, we create unnecessary suffering for ourselves. The eyes play a particularly important role in this experience. Through the eyes, we read teachings that guide our understanding. We observe the world with curiosity and reflection. We witness the suffering of others and develop compassion. The Buddha often spoke about seeing clearly, not only with the physical eyes, but also with the eyes of wisdom. Physical vision allows us to observe the world. Wisdom allows us to understand it. When our eyesight is strong, it becomes easier to engage with learning, reflection, and exploration. Books, teachings, and written knowledge remain accessible. The natural world becomes a source of inspiration and contemplation. But when eyesight weakens significantly, these opportunities may become limited. This is why protecting vision is a form of gratitude. Gratitude means recognizing the value of something before it disappears. Many people take care of objects that they value. They protect their homes, their possessions, and their finances because they understand the importance of preserving what they have. But the body is often neglected in comparison. People sometimes treat their health as if it will remain stable forever. They ignore small habits that slowly weaken their well-being. Yet the truth is that the body is temporary and delicate. The Buddha repeatedly reminded his followers that all physical forms are subject to change. Youth becomes age. Strength becomes weakness. Clarity becomes uncertainty. Understanding this reality should not create fear. Instead, it should inspire awareness. When we recognize that the abilities we possess today may not last forever, we naturally begin to care for them more carefully. Protecting the eyes becomes an act of wisdom. It means paying attention to what we consume. It means allowing the eyes proper rest. It means reducing habits that strain or damage these delicate organs. It means choosing behaviors that support long-term health rather than short-term convenience. These actions may seem small in the moment, but they accumulate powerful results over time. Just as repeated harmful habits can weaken the eyes gradually, repeated mindful choices can help preserve their strength. The Buddha often taught that gratitude leads to mindfulness. When we truly appreciate something, we naturally become more attentive to how we treat it. If we appreciate our eyesight, we begin to ask important questions. Are we nourishing the body in ways that support healthy vision? Are we protecting our eyes from unnecessary strain? Are we allowing our senses to rest and recover? Are our daily habits strengthening our health or slowly weakening it? These questions guide us toward wiser choices. They remind us that the body is not something to neglect until problems appear. It is something to care for consistently and respectfully. The eyes are among the most valuable gifts we experience in this human life. Through them, we witness the world, learn from our surroundings, and engage with the teachings that help us grow. To protect this gift is not merely a health decision. It is a form of awareness. It is a recognition that the abilities we possess today deserve careful attention so that they may continue supporting our lives for many years to come. 6. Mindfulness in small choices prevents large problems. The Buddha repeatedly emphasized a simple but powerful truth. Life is shaped by small actions repeated over time. Most people imagine that major changes in health or happiness come from dramatic events. They think suffering arrives suddenly, without warning. But the Buddha explained that suffering rarely appears without a long chain of causes behind it. Small actions accumulate. Small habits grow stronger, and eventually those habits shape the condition of the body and mind. This is especially true when it comes to health. The body does not suddenly become weak in one day. It becomes weak through years of repeated choices that slowly influence its balance. What we eat, what we drink, how we rest, how we move, and what substances we allow into our body all contribute to our long-term condition. Many people underestimate the power of small choices because the results are not immediately visible. A person may consume a particular powder every day in their drinks or food. They may assume that because they feel fine today, the habit must be harmless. But the body is constantly responding beneath the surface. Each time a substance enters the body, the organs must process it. The liver filters it. The bloodstream carries it. The digestive system breaks it down. The nervous system reacts to its effects. When these substances support the body, health gradually strengthens. When they disturb the body's balance, stress slowly accumulates. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to these patterns. Mindfulness is not only about sitting quietly in meditation, it is also about being aware of the countless small decisions we make throughout the day. Every meal is a decision. Every drink is a decision. Every ingredient we add to our food is a decision. When mindfulness is absent, these decisions become automatic. People follow routines simply because they have followed them for years. They repeat habits without asking whether those habits still serve their well-being. But mindfulness interrupts this automatic pattern. When a person becomes mindful, They begin to observe their actions more carefully. Instead of acting purely from habit, they start asking thoughtful questions. Why am I consuming this? What effect does it have on my body? Is this choice supporting my health or slowly weakening it? These questions create awareness. Awareness creates change. Once we begin observing our habits clearly, we often discover that some of them exist purely out of convenience or familiarity, rather than genuine benefit. For example, a person might use a certain powder in their drinks every day simply because they have always done so. They may have never examined the ingredients or considered how those substances interact with the body over time. When mindfulness enters the picture, that habit becomes visible. The person may begin reading ingredient labels. They may notice high levels of refined sugars, artificial compounds, or stabilizing chemicals designed to improve taste and shelf life rather than health. This awareness opens the door to wiser choices. Instead of continuing the habit automatically, the person can reduce the substance, replace it with something more natural, or remove it entirely. At first, this change may seem small, but the Buddha often taught that small improvements repeated consistently can transform an entire life. Consider how habits shape the body over long periods of time. If a person consumes substances that create inflammation or metabolic imbalance every day for many years, the body gradually becomes weaker. Circulation becomes less efficient. Energy levels fluctuate. Organs experience additional stress. And delicate systems such as the eyes begin to reflect these internal disturbances. But the opposite is also true. When a person makes mindful choices repeatedly, the body slowly moves toward greater balance, choosing whole foods instead of heavily processed ingredients, reducing unnecessary additives, allowing the body time to rest and recover, drinking clean water, protecting the eyes from excessive strain. These small acts of mindfulness strengthen the body gradually. The effects may not appear immediately, but over months and years they create powerful differences. This is why the Buddha emphasized consistency rather than perfection. Many people abandon healthy practices because they believe they must make perfect decisions all the time. But wisdom does not require perfection. It requires awareness and steady improvement. Even small adjustments can change the direction of a person's health, replacing one unhealthy habit, reducing one harmful ingredient, creating one moment of mindfulness each day. These actions may seem insignificant in isolation, but they accumulate powerful results over time. Just as a single drop of water may seem small, many drops together can carve deep valleys in stone. Habits work in the same way. Each mindful choice strengthens the body's resilience. Each careless habit slowly weakens it. The Buddha encouraged people to examine their lives carefully and notice which habits lead toward well-being and which lead toward suffering. When we observe these patterns clearly, we gain the ability to guide our lives with wisdom rather than ignorance. Health is not controlled by one large decision made once in a lifetime. It is shaped by thousands of small choices made every day. When mindfulness guides those choices, the body receives the care and balance it needs to remain strong. And when the body remains balanced, the senses, including the eyes, are far more likely to continue serving us well throughout our lives. This is why mindfulness in small choices is so powerful, because it prevents small problems from quietly growing into large ones. 7 Wisdom means protecting your future self. The Buddha often encouraged people to think beyond the present moment. Human beings have a natural tendency to focus on what feels good right now. If something is convenient, enjoyable, or satisfying in the moment, the mind quickly accepts it. The consequences that may appear months or years later are often ignored. This is one of the reasons suffering develops in life. People do not always act with their future in mind. Instead, they follow immediate comfort. The Buddha's teachings invite us to develop a deeper kind of wisdom, the wisdom that considers long-term consequences. Every action we take today becomes the condition of our tomorrow. Every habit we repeat becomes part of the life we will live later. When people understand this clearly, their decisions begin to change. They start asking themselves important questions. How will this habit affect me 10 years from now? Is this action strengthening my body or slowly weakening it? Am I protecting my future health or ignoring it? These questions create awareness about the direction of one's life. Many of the health problems people face later in life are not sudden accidents. They are often the result of habits that were repeated quietly for many years. When unhealthy substances enter the body repeatedly, the body adapts at first. It tries to compensate for the imbalance. Organs work harder. Systems adjust to maintain stability. But over long periods of time, even a resilient body begins to show signs of strain. Circulation may become less efficient. Inflammation may increase. Organs may become less effective at performing their tasks. The eyes are especially sensitive to these internal changes. Because vision depends on delicate blood vessels, stable nerves, and balanced nutrients, any disturbance inside the body can eventually influence how clearly we see. When people ignore these long-term effects, they often reach a moment later in life where they begin to regret their earlier habits. They may wish they had paid more attention to what they consumed. They may wish they had protected their health more carefully when they were younger. But wisdom allows us to prevent that regret. The Buddha taught that awareness gives us the ability to shape our future intentionally. When we recognize that today's actions create tomorrow's conditions, we begin to care for ourselves differently. Protecting your future self means acting with foresight. It means choosing habits that support long-term health even when those choices require a little more effort today. For example, a person might reduce their dependence on processed powders or additives once they realize how those substances affect the body over time. They might choose simpler, more natural foods that nourish the body rather than burden it. They might allow their eyes proper rest instead of constantly exposing them to strain. They might become more attentive to hydration, sleep, and overall balance. These decisions may seem small in the present moment, but over years and decades, they create powerful outcomes. The person who protects their body today is protecting their independence tomorrow. They are protecting their ability to read, to move freely, to observe the world clearly, and to engage with life without unnecessary limitation. The Buddha often spoke about responsibility in this way. He reminded his followers that no one else lives inside our body. No one else experiences the direct consequences of our habits. We are the ones who inherit the results of our actions. If we care for the body wisely, we inherit strength and stability. If we neglect it repeatedly, we inherit the suffering created by those habits. Understanding this principle gives life a sense of direction. Instead of drifting through routines without awareness, we begin living with intention. Each decision becomes part of a larger commitment to our well-being. This does not mean becoming fearful or obsessive about every detail of life. The Buddha always taught balance. What matters is not perfection, but awareness. It is the willingness to reflect on our habits and adjust them when we recognize that they are leading us toward harm. Wisdom grows when we begin thinking about the person we will become in the future. The body we inhabit 10 years from now is being shaped by the choices we make today. The clarity of our vision, the strength of our health, and the quality of our daily life will all reflect the habits we cultivate now. Protecting your future self is therefore an act of compassion. It is compassion directed toward the person you will become. By making mindful decisions today, you give that future self the gift of greater health, greater freedom, and greater peace. The Buddha taught that wisdom is not only about understanding the nature of reality, it is also about living in a way that reduces suffering for ourselves and others. When we protect our health and care for our body with awareness, we are practicing that wisdom in a very practical way. Every mindful choice becomes a seed planted for a healthier future. And over time, those seeds grow into a life supported by clarity, strength, and well-being. My dear friends, the Buddha often reminded us that wisdom begins with awareness. When we move through life without paying attention to our habits, we slowly allow suffering to grow in the background. Small actions repeated every day quietly shape the condition of our body and mind. What we consume, what we repeat, and what we ignore eventually become the reality we live with. The eyes, like the rest of the body, reflect these choices over time. They depend on balance, nourishment, and care. When we neglect them through unconscious habits, the consequences may not appear immediately, but they can slowly unfold over the years. But the beautiful truth in the Buddha's teaching is this: suffering is not inevitable. When awareness enters our life, change becomes possible. The moment we begin questioning our habits, the moment we start choosing more wisely, the direction of our future begins to shift. Each mindful decision becomes a step toward protecting our health, preserving our clarity, and respecting the body that carries us through this human journey. You do not need to change everything at once. Wisdom grows through small, consistent actions. Pay attention to what you consume. Pay attention to what your body is telling you. Protect your senses, especially your eyes, which allow you to experience the beauty and lessons of this world. When awareness guides your daily choices, you begin creating a life with less suffering and greater balance. And that, my friends, is the quiet power of wisdom.